Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and in Urmston in the northwest of England. And I'm offering this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit and for the soul. And it's titled, A Journey from Paralysing Worry to Creative Concern. Now, as any regular watcher of my videos will no doubt be aware, but maybe not all of you, I have a new joy in my life. A wonderful little puppy, a Havanese puppy named Molly. She's beautiful. She is a wonderful blessing and a great responsibility. She's also, I've noticed, something else to worry about. Like I don't have enough things to worry about in my life. And I found myself the other day very worried as she'd eaten something probably that she shouldn't have, that made her sick, from the garden obviously. And then she went very quiet for an hour and I got increasingly worried that there was something seriously wrong with her. In fact, I was so worried I couldn't focus on anything else. And I made a fatal error. I went on Google. Never a good idea. You can go down all sorts of dark avenues and end up convincing yourself of all kinds of trouble. And I needn't have worried. I said, an hour later she was back to her usual self, chewing away at a bit of carpet. No doubt it'll happen again because it happens to dogs all the time, doesn't it? Big and small dogs. But yeah, it got me going a little bit that day. And I've experienced a few other worries over the last few weeks actually, around, not just around Molly, but around family and friends and work and all sorts of things. Those people I love and care about. And this week I've had much to hold in my heart and many people to be concerned about. It's my job after all, but it's also part of who I am. It's also been the funeral of my dear cousin Cheryl, and I've been back and forth to Yorkshire a couple of times this week. There are other family troubles about too, and I've been carrying an awful lot. It's been a heavy week and a deeply emotional week actually, a heartbreaking week at times. Cheryl's funeral went as well as it could, but it was deeply painful. So very sad. Heartbreaking. Not sad, heartbreaking. Now please don't get me wrong though, none of this worry, this concern, this pain has paralysed me in any way. I have had a very productive week, despite what I've been carrying in my heart. I've also had the joy of Molly and one or two other pleasures in my life. And I've still found myself singing most of the time, I always do. And there's been laughter too. And unlike my favourite Mary Oliver, singing is something I do not worry about. But here's a bit of Mary on worry. So this is I Worried by Mary Oliver. I worried a lot. Will the garden grow? Will the rivers flow in the right direction? Will the earth turn as it was taught? And if not, how shall I correct it? Was I right? Was I wrong? Will I be forgiven? Can I do better? Will I ever be able to sing? Even the sparrows can do it, and I am, well, hopeless. Is my eyesight fading, or am I just imagining it? Am I going to get rheumatism, lockjaw, dementia? Finally I saw that worrying had come to nothing, and I gave it up. And I took my old body and went out into the morning and sang. I Worried by Mary Oliver. We all have our worries in life. I'm sure that some of you share Mary Oliver's, or perhaps you have many others of your own. No doubt you do. Many folk are deeply concerned about how they're going to cope this winter. It's a real concern. I know a lot of people are very, very worried that financially they'll be unable to get by. It's a deep concern. Many folk have health worries too, whether they're physical, emotional, mental or spiritual. Many worry that if they become ill, they'll be unable to get the help that they need. And such worry impacts negatively on all our well-being. We make ourselves ill with it. People get really stressed. They make themselves ill. And there's no doubt to me that anxiety and depression actually is on the increase. It's just in the air. There's a a level of depression and anxiety increased in most people, I think. Things have not returned to normal since COVID restrictions ended. And if anything, people seem to be struggling more now, more than they were 6 months, a year ago. It's also worth noting, of course, we had these same worries, these same concerns long before the pandemic began. It's not just as a result of that. They were with us anyway. Things have just got worse, harder. Life is harder. But worrying and getting caught up in anxiety won't solve any of these problems. In fact, it'll just make them worse. But just telling people not to worry doesn't help either. That makes them worry more. They start to feel guilty then. All it does is eat away at our well-being even more. If we could just stop worrying, I'm sure we would just stop worrying. It's no good just saying, oh, don't worry about it. It doesn't really help. Such platitudes do not help. And besides, I don't think worrying is actually the problem. We can worry, but we do not need to be paralysed by that worry. It's like fear. Fear isn't the issue. Fear is only a problem if it paralyses or runs our lives. We worry. That's a natural human response sometimes. It's the paralysing grip that it can have on us that's the real issue. Being paralysed by worry does no good to anyone. It cripples us, reduces life. Now, of course, we should not dismiss the challenges of life and live like some kind of delusional Pollyanna, as if there is nothing wrong in the world. But being controlled by worry, destroys all enjoyment in life. I remember a few years ago when speaking to an American colleague, the Reverend Jill McAllister, who was visiting our General Assembly meetings. She told me how she worried about the congregants that she served and how she could help them with their crippling anxiety about their own lives. And she described these people as being educated, reasonably wealthy, privileged people, but they were utterly ruled by worry. I have the same concerns about the folk I serve, and the same concerns about my friends and my family and my wider community and the human family, really. And I wonder sometimes how much of our energy is spent worrying about these people in our lives. Is this the best use of our limited resources? Surely it would be better to put our energy into something more constructive. I spend a lot of my time listening to people. They tell me of their worries and they often at the end of it, it's weird really, what they say. After telling me, pouring their hearts out, they go, oh, but not to worry. Which is precisely, of course, what they're doing. It's almost like something we just say, like saying cheerio or goodbye. Oh, not to pouring our hearts out. Oh, not to worry. But I do know by sharing our worries, they do take up less space in our beings. I had a long conversation with my brother the other morning. It was early in the morning, he needed to talk. I was at the time working on Cheryl's eulogy. So it was difficult really, because my mind was slightly distracted by this intense thing I had to do. But my brother's troubles are not trivial and we needed to talk. And in sharing them, he gained some strength to continue doing what he needed to do and not become paralysed by fear and worry. While we were speaking, Molly was sat on my lap as I continued writing Cheryl's eulogy. She must have realised I needed some support, and she stayed there for hours that morning. She stayed there till I had to go to the toilet actually. It was a little bit of a challenge because her head was resting on my left arm, her chin just beautifully placed over my arm, so I couldn't move my left hand. So I had to write Cheryl's eulogy with these two fingers and this thumb essentially. I only had the use of one, but somehow I managed to get through, and while she was a little bit of a hindrance, she was a massive help. What a beautiful blessing. It might have paralysed one arm, but it opened up something more important in me, and she supported me as I carried on, as I supported my brother as he carried on. And it was creative concern if ever I've seen an example of it. Sometimes the most crippling aspect of worry is worrying about what might be. We worry the most possible scenarios possible. As I did when I was exploring Google when Molly was feeling a bit poorly the other day. Not a good idea. Maybe I'll learn one day. And the thing about worry is that, as Mark Twain observed, is that most things that we worry about never really happen. Molly was fine after all. And yet, as we go on through the day, the worry machine is there, chugging away in our minds, stopping us experiencing this life we've been given. How many of us worry so much about being on time, that we ruin every journey we go on? It's one of mine actually, as I'm travelling up and down. I hate being late, and I can get caught up in traffic getting out of Altrincham all the time, and I worry about being late. How many of us, for weeks before we go on holiday, worry about what the weather's going to be like, ruin all that time? How many of us spend our days worrying obsessively about how we look, what people will think about us? Will the world come to the end? Will the political situation ever get resolved? About our children and the people in our lives and the possible scenarios, the troubles they could face. No, we're no different to Mary Oliver in our worries, are we? But the problem then is not worry. It's what we do with our worries. Worry is just a natural human response, a loving response actually. It's what we do about the worry. Do we become paralysed, or do we create something from the concern? I'm not suggesting these worries aren't real either. They're real. But we'd be better if we dealt with these situations rather than becoming paralysed by our worry. Why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we waste so much energy being paralysed by this worry? Why are we so afraid of what might go wrong? Why do we believe that we can stop such things happening if we just somehow control life? Because we can't, you know. Things do go wrong. Sometimes when they go wrong, better things come from them too. So we can't paralyse ourselves or paralyse the world just to try and control our anxiety and worry, because it doesn't work. It just makes things worse actually. Worry has its place as well. We have the capacity to worry for good reason, as we can anticipate what troubles might come our way. We can prepare we can mitigate against the troubles that might come our way in life. Something perhaps that's evolved in our humanity to guard against potential danger, like storing food for winter. The problem isn't worry itself or concern or preparation. The problem is when we become paralysed by worry. It's the power that worry can have over us. So the key is where we focus our attention. Worry and concern can help us to do so in positive ways. But it can also paralyse us. So what seems to be key is how we focused our attention on the worry or on what we can actually do about a situation. So the key is how we focus. And you see throughout the gospel accounts, Jesus is often portrayed as being concerned with what the people he is with have focused their attention on. When he said, "Consider the lilies," he was turning their attention on the lilies, to experience the lilies. Likewise, when he said the kingdom of heaven is at hand, he was pinpointing the exact location of where attention ought to be in order to enter this kingdom. And when he said, "Fear not, judge not, love one another," he's suggesting that the focus ought to move away from images that generate fear and judgment towards ones centred on love. So they had the same worries in those days, and the same solution, I suspect, to those problems today. It's where we focus our attention. That is the key. The key is what we focus on. Do we focus in loving ways, in the moment we find ourselves, in the place we find ourselves, or do we become so paralysed by our worries that we can't do anything? We cannot escape the troubles of life. Life is, by its nature, a risky business. But it does us no good to waste our days worrying about what might go wrong. Instead, what we need to do is embrace the risk of living. I'm not saying that we do foolish risk-taking things. What I mean is that we need to give ourselves away to something useful, something beautiful, something life-enhancing. The key is to risk ourselves for the world itself, to hazard ourselves for the right things in life, for the good things in life. As David White wrote in his book Consolations, the solace, nourishment and underlying meaning of everyday words, this is what David said. We are here essentially to risk ourselves in the world. We are a form of invitation to others and to otherness. We are meant to hazard ourselves for the right thing, for the right woman or the right man, for a son or a daughter, for the right work or for a gift given against all the odds. And in all this continual risking,